And we are rolling. Well, last video I posted was a wash of the Boss 302. Now to follow up the next day. Time for 100% carnauba wax. This is P21S, made in Germany, and it's a high-end or relatively high-end carnauba wax. I mean, of course there are many others, so take your pick, whatever you're satisfied with, but this is the one I use. I seem to get good results with it, so why change a good thing, right? So we're going to get ready here, and I am going to don the vinyl gloves here, just so my oily hands don't mar the paint, and it keeps the wax off the hands. Sometimes wax is not the easiest thing to remove. When you try to remove it, it doesn't always come off for some time, so better on the gloves than on my hands. There we go. And as you see, I got some microfiber towels here, which I can use to buff off, which is my preference. So I'll just put them back here for now, keep them off the ground. And when you're waxing a car, it's always a good idea to wax it on the grass wherever possible, because if you ever drop this, hopefully I don't drop it now, if you drop it and it falls on the concrete, well, guess what? It's going to be picking up all kinds of sediments and micro chips and stones and that sort of thing, and it'll be all over your applicator. That's a definite no-no in the waxing world, I suppose. I certainly don't want to engage in that sort of thing with this car. So anyway, I'm getting a good application on here, and I'll start as I do when I wash the car, start from the roof going down, and do the same thing when I'm waxing. Just out of force of habit, I suppose. And let's begin. Here we go. It's always a joy waxing a car for me. It's therapeutic. You get to think about a lot of things in your life when you're waxing the car, because you're by yourself doing the wax job. You get to think about a lot of things in the silence. I don't hear many planes overhead. I don't hear any so far. So maybe they all landed from yesterday. And it's still trying to threaten rain here. It's really, really micro drops that are falling. Not enough to make it annoying or deter me from doing this job. Just enough to make me concerned. And typically when you wax, from every direction I've read, you want to do it in similar fashion, go in one direction back and forth across the car, rather than in the circular wax on, wax off. I think that's more media driven than it is practical. If you look at the directions on any wax jar or wax bottle, it typically says do a small section at a time, and do it in a back and forth motion. No mention of circular. Although one could contend when you're buffing a car that's using a circular motion on the buffer. So the court of opinion's open for interpretation on that. I just follow directions on the wax can. I'm following the directions, so. I go to the other side here, because while that side is drying, getting ready to be buffed, I like to utilize all of my time effectively, so I get the other side. Once I buff up to the middle of the roof, then I can go to the other side, because presumably it will be dry by then. It's all in the interests of efficiency, saving time where you can. You never get those seconds and minutes back in your life. You might as well make every one of them count wherever you can. And I just did a big no-no. I can hear my belt bumping up against the car. That is a no starter, Richard. Bad idea. The belt has to come off. Sorry about that, but as a caveat, always take your belt off and any sharp objects so you're not banging up against the paint. That was just a stupidity I just did, so, but I don't think I scratched anything. I just heard it gently touch the metal. So I think we're going to be okay. But word of warning, make sure you remove your belt when you're getting in close to the car, or if you're washing or waxing or doing any kind of work on the car, because you don't want to be scratching the paint with an article of clothing like a belt. That. All right, we got the roof already waxed. Moving right along here. And you want to use a nice clean microfiber towel. And start your buffing procedure. Just gently back and forth, back and forth. Sorry, my back is to the camera. My dad was a cinematographer for 50, almost 60 years. He'd cut my head off if he saw me doing this. Sorry, back. I'll look at the camera. Here, I'm looking at the camera, so. But I gotta look at my job, concentrate on my work as well. Sorry, Dad. I'll send him a copy. He's 93 years old. I know I'm gonna hear it from with regards to my photo angle and lack of creativity. Just having a lock-off shot, as it's called in the industry. I suppose I could move the camera around from point to point, but I'm a one-man shop here. I'm waxing the car and I'm trying to be a cinematographer and narrate. Not my area of expertise. There we go. It's leaving an amazing shine here. You don't want to wipe it off too hard. You don't wipe all the wax off, so you just move in generally one direction until you see that there are no hazy marks. Once the hazy marks are gone, that's sufficient. And when the water ever hits this, it's going to bead like crazy, which is exactly what you want. You want it just to roll right off the paint. Water is the most corrosive force in the universe, I think. It wears down everything. Everything. So I'm going to go for the hood here. It's got a nice little raise to it, a little bulge to the hood. Of course, the reason why they crease metal in the first place is it gives it structural rigidity. So if anybody ever wondered why there are certain creases and folds in cars, particularly hoods, makes it a little more structurally sound. The metal is more structurally sound when you crease it in spots. So it gives it more strength. Also gives it more beauty. As you can see, it's the red hockey stick stripes. As I mentioned in the first video, this is a day 2 car. This had to have had the silver stripes because all the black Laguna Secas, they only made 2 colors. They made school bus yellow with black stripes, and they made black Laguna Secas with silver stripes, which I believe were glow in the dark. I think that's the same. They were the same in the 69, on the 69 Mustang, the Mustang Boss 302. They had the glow in the dark or reflective stripes. And it's moving right along here. Good. By the way, this wax goes a long way. This wax can. I've probably gotten about 8 or 9 waxings out of it, and there's still a quarter left. So, although it's a little pricey, I think it's between $30 to $40 for a can. The can goes a long way because it's 100% pure carnauba, and you can use it sparingly and get a very good shine. Micro drops are starting to pick up a little more here. Still not enough to get me to stop waxing this bomb, this beast, this black dragon. If it gets a little heavier, I'm going to have to stop. I think it's going to let up. It's just threatening. And I hear another jet, but it sounds like it's flying way up in the clouds. I think in the first video they were flying lower because the cloud cover was very low yesterday. I'm going to wax a stripe too, why not? Won't hurt it. Offers a little protection for the stripe as well. Big bad red stripe. And I'll just get the top of the front fenders too, since it's the top portion of the vehicle. For consistency's sake anyway. I think I gotta hold off on doing the air extractors until I can determine if it's going to rain or not. I suppose I can re-angle the camera a little bit. Factor in the hood. There we go. Black paint is always the hardest to detail because it shows every flaw. Why that's the case, I don't know. Has to do with the color spectrum, I suppose. This car would be amazing in Vanta Black, V-A-N-T-A, V-A-N-T-A. Look it up. It's the darkest black that we've ever created. It absorbs light. It's so black it looks like you're looking into a pool of abyss, nothingness. It's quite the thing. It'd be very expensive to paint the car in Vanta Black, but this car in Vanta Black, I couldn't even imagine how stunning it would be. You feel like you could walk right into the car, walk through it. Picking up, feel the autumn in the air. Favorite time of year as Halloween encroaches. Not too hot, not too cold. It's ideal. At least I think so. We're moving on at a good clip here. Look at that, the roof is done. And now the hood. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to have a little sip of my green tea, get my antioxidants. Cheers. Skål. Prosit. Bottoms up. It's a great healthy drink, green tea. Okay, now we're going to head over to the trunk. I suppose I'll move the camera here so my dad doesn't give me too much of a hard time. Let's see what we got. There we go. you can see it okay. I'll just get it right along here. And this is a little trickier here with the trunk because of this big spoiler. But you can work around it, work in between it. I'm just using the back and forth motion here. By the way, in the first video on washing the car, it wasn't lost on me that I missed the wax, or not the wax, but rather the soap that was on the two plastic headlight inserts. I saw that in the video, and I had to correct that. Isn't it Confucius that says if you make a mistake and you realize your mistake and don't correct it, you've made a second mistake? So I fixed it. So anybody that observes that little faux pas, it's been corrected. And to get under the spoiler here, you just have to kind of fiddle around between the spoiler and the deck lid to get it in there. And just kind of push this in and move it back and forth. So you can basically use both hands to get all the wax on there. It's a little bit of a challenge to get the wax removed, but it's worth it to have the full coverage. I want the full coverage, just like insurance. We're getting it here, we're getting it. And the technique I use, I haven't had this car in the stable for that long, is to pop the trunk so you can get at the this portion here. Because why struggle when you can just open the deck lid and wax that car much more easily and readily. And that's what we're going to do right now. Everything's a button these days, unlike the old cars. And voila! There we are. Very nice. Get this while we're at it. And get on the edge right here. I don't want to miss any spots. This right here. Right around the antenna. Over here again. Get this right on the edge here. Don't want to miss that little lip there. And at the risk of sounding neurotic, I like to use a toothbrush to get at the other nooks and crannies. This car, whoever bought the car originally, we ordered it with the Boss 302 car cover, so that'll be going on the car fairly soon. But it's a nice little addition to have. I also learned something too. I learned about the VIN numbers that distinguishes a Boss, and it's a certain sequence. The numbers are, it's something, it's not a G like a 6970, it's P8C, P like pet, 8 like the number 8, and C like cat. So pet 8 cat, P8C. That is the determinant to verify that the VIN number corresponds to a Boss 302. Actually, I see a little X mark here for those that are super crazy about paint marks. There's a little X mark there right on the vinyl, or actually the trunk rubber strip. There's a little mark there too, and there's one right there. So if this car is ever going to get restored, in the future. There you go. There's your answer as to what needs to be done. Just got to get the camera right here. There we go. Just do a little bump here. Get the spot off before we close the lid. Get the other side as well. And you want to get the little edges here that you got earlier. Get that off the plastic as best you can. Just guide your microfiber cloth there. Now, if you're really, really crazy about waxing cars, the ideal thing, and this keeps falling here, I apologize. The ideal thing is to, let me tighten it off here. The ideal thing would be to wax right in here, this area. I'll probably do that after the camera stops running, but that's a good idea. Wax everything so the water doesn't really hold and it just rolls. I noticed the trunk stampings here say L and R, so left and right, and it's got the little Ford stamp in it. That's interesting. So that's some guide at the factory so that they put the right side or the correct side on. Interesting. It never ceases to amaze me how fast these cars are built. They're built in record time, it seems. If you ever are a restorer, I mean, I see the headaches and tribulations that restorers go through to put a car back together. It takes so long to do it for just one car. These cars are spit out in hours. It's incredible. I know there's robotics involved in building these cars, which is great because they don't make mistakes like humans make mistakes. So I'm in favor of automation to that extent. Somebody still has to maintain the robot, so there's where you lose work in one area, you gain it in another. So everything seems to balance out in the end in this universe. But the robotics do a great job, but they still have to have human interaction to indicate which vendors are which, right and left, I suppose, as they're being fed down the assembly line. I just noticed those paint marks incidentally. I'm a big fan of graveyard cars with Mark Warman. It's hilarious how he spills out all these numbers and VINs, and he is really, really hypersensitive to the minutiae of how these cars are built. So it's kind of tuned me into the little details that would otherwise get overlooked. Especially if you're buying a car, you want to know these little details. And the Shelby American Automobile Club, if you're looking for Shelbys, is a particularly good place to start if you're looking for a Shelby Mustang, particularly the first generation. They will help you immensely so you don't make a mistake. You never want to make a mistake when you're buying a specialty car. You want to make sure that what you're getting is real and know what you're getting, even if it's a total wreck. So what? You can rebuild it if it's rebuildable. But you want to make sure that it's a real thing before you invest the money to rebuild it. Otherwise, you've just bought yourself some litigation. And having practiced law for many years, I've seen people buy litigation when they could have been avoided just through making informed choices in life. And you make the informed choices by learning from other people. I believe the expression is, it's great to learn from your mistakes, but it's golden to learn from other people's mistakes. So I don't know who to attribute that quotation to. I think actually Warren Buffett said it. He's somewhat of a finance philosopher, if such a thing does exist. And just pop it here. I think I get the little bits, the little corners, the wax has overshot the creases in the body. Just wipe these out. And it's looking good. Looks like I got everything. Well, I missed a spot there. Always miss a spot. You can wax a whole car and think you got everything, and then you go over it again the next day and you'll see spots that you missed. unless you're hyper vigilant. But those spots are easy to fix. There's a plane flying at higher altitude now. There we are. Okay, here is a part 2. I think I will have to splice this together, but it's all right. Okay, now we're off the sides here. Off to the races. Get this A-pillar here. A-pillar. I did not get that during the first pass, so we'll take care of that. And the C-pillar here. It's called the A-pillar because it's curved like an A, so it's just a quick reference. And the C-pillar here, the same thing. Getting around the window. Okay, and let's begin down sides here. Along the front fender. Just moving right along. I still wax the graphics here. It doesn't really seem to embed itself in the lettering. The stripes, it's still fairly easy to remove. I've experimented with it and it's never been a problem to get it out. I don't even need to use a toothbrush to do it. It still works fine. So it's always good to put a coat on the stripes. I don't believe it harms it. It's just wax after all. Rubber wax. So putting it on the stripes I don't believe causes any damage. Although I'm open to interpretations. If anybody knows something, let me know. I just move right along this Black Beauty's door. This black dragon wants to bite. Now I know there's been a lot of complaints about the the S197 Mustangs and their MT82 transmissions being weak. There, I just did the very thing that I warned the people against. Let me go wipe this off. I think we're good. Probably should have parked this thing further over in the grass. Of course it has to fall, or I have to fumble. Right where the worst part would be to fumble it. But I think we're good. I don't hear any grit, any grinding. Since this is a one take, you see all the problems. I don't edit anything out. Other than I'll splice this to the original because I had a problem setting. It wanted to tilt the tripod, that is. So there's only two things that'll get spliced together: this part 2 and the part 1. So it's one complete edit, one complete film. But we're all good on it. I don't hear any grit. I had the garden hose over there, so I did wash it off here. So it seems clean. Anyway, I was talking about the MT82 transmission. There's been a lot of complaints about it. I haven't had any issues with this one, but I don't shift this thing at 6 or 7 or 8,000 RPM, so I'm not power shifting with it or anything like that. But nevertheless, it is a weakness in the car. And I'm not paid by Calimer, but I heard that Calimer builds stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 rebuilds of this transmission to make it bulletproof. And to go with a stage 3, it can handle like 900 or 1,000 horsepower. It's just ridiculously insane how strong he makes those transmissions. So if you want to keep originality but fortify the interior of your transmission, your MT82, that's probably the place to take it. I haven't done that yet. I will consider doing that though, because eventually things break. It's a natural order of things. Everything falls into entropy and falls apart until you rebuild it again, and then it falls apart again. But the MT82, this one has not been problematic for me so far. But Calimer will be the place I would go. You box it up, you take it out, you box it up, send it to him, and he will get you a stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3. So, like I said, I don't get paid for this. I just go by from what I hear on the other websites, and sounds like most people are quite satisfied with this work product. So. Or you can take it out and you can put a Tremec in. A Tremec, I don't know, T56, I don't know which one it is, but you probably, if it's a Boss 302, you probably want to keep the originality and just go with the MT82, because the rest of the transmission is fine. It's just a few little things that Ford cut corners on, imagine that. But just a few things that corners were cut on, and that's what makes the transmission weak, but it's not an insurmountable problem that can be corrected. Okay, back to the wax here. I like this little divot here because it mirrors the 1965 Mustang fastback. That's exactly how they did it. So there are so many styling cues with the first generation Mustangs. It just, I'm just tickled as to how nicely Ford did this car. There's not an angle on this car that I do not like. Now that's a complicated way to say a double negative, but that means I like every angle. So. Not an angle that I don't like. It means I like every angle. Double negatives are tricky. Lawyers throw them into closets to throw the general public off. You must be vigilant. Here's the gas cap I was talking about. You just push it like that, it opens, and there you go, no cap. You just put it in for a quick fill. Okay, let's start buffing. Start at the top here. Some guys like to use clay bars. I have yet to try a clay bar. I have a few reservations about it. It seems like it's a pretty aggressive way to get embedded dirt out, but sometimes it may be a necessity to get the deeply entrenched dirt out. And clay bars apparently can only be used a few times before you have to throw them away, because it's like plasticine. It just gets the dirt embedded and then you fold it over and the dirt's embedded in the plasticine, but eventually it's no good anymore because it's just full of dirt. But perhaps in some extreme cases it may be good to clay bar your car. I haven't done it yet. I don't think I'll reach that stage where I need to. I like to take care of my things, take care of this car, for sure. It'd be my worst nightmare to see this thing piled up in a wrecking yard somewhere after I'm dead and gone. Say, what the hell did you do to it? It was mint while I had it. Why is it in a wrecking yard now? Everybody's buzzing around in electric cars, or hydrogen if we run out of lithium. Not caring, driving by the wrecking yard with careless disregard of the old history that's in there, with no interest. But there's always going to be hunters out there. There's a website, I think it's called Carcology. It's a play on archaeology, carchaeology. I think that's hilarious, actually, carchaeology. That really got me. So there will probably be carchaeologists out there still looking for these little golden gems. Of course, this won't be the only one. We'll be looking at Hellcat Challengers and Hellcat Challenger wide bodies that are going to be resurrected from the dead. And I guess as of late, the Super Stalker Challenger, which is over 800 horsepower, I believe. It's crazy the amount of horsepower that we have in 2021, heading on to 2022. In the 60s, if you told anybody that you could buy a car off a dealership without over 800 horsepower, they'd think you're high. They wouldn't believe it. But here we are. And those of us that have lived long enough have lived to see that event. And I'm not begrudging it, even though a lot of the cars have resorted to polyurethane, a friendly word for plastic, on a lot of the parts. But hey, I've learned to accept the plastic because, you know, plastic lasts a long time. It's got a long shelf life, and it's very easy to replace and repair. So if there's something that needs to be replaced that's made of plastic, you just put it in an injection mold. Voila, you got a brand new piece for a bumper, easily installed. Whereas if it's a chrome bumper, as everybody might know that's had the old cars, you have to put it in a bath and have all the chrome removed and any of the rust, and then you have to have it re-chromed. And it's a bigger headache, that's for sure. And their dogs, a nice quiet neighborhood, just the way I like it, save for the planes. Alright, let's see if I've missed anything. Now I need to get the lower level. I will take care of that. I have not forgotten that. And I will get to that right now. Well, actually, I'm going to go to the other side and take care of the other side. So I believe that merits moving the camera. So let's move this, shuffle this thing on over. And we'll put it right here. Hopefully it will get a good view of the car. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay. And I'm going to get the C-pillar here. Actually, that was the A-pillar. I stand corrected. A-pillar and the C-pillar is there. Good thing I had my autocorrect on in my brain. This little spot here. This is like the 69, 70 Mustangs, the fastbacks. I remember that very well. The little ridge. Except it came out a little more on the 69 and 70s. That ridge was a little more pronounced. But this is really tastefully done. It's like a cake, almost like a flying cake. As it's moving, this cake is flying behind the car. Maybe that's what the intent was of the designer. I don't know. But it certainly does look beautiful in my opinion. And I'm just going to get the front fender here. I may disappear out of shot for a short period of time. Some of you may be saying that's a good thing. Some of you may be saying, why doesn't he just shut up and just wax the damn car? Opinions vary. Can't please everybody in this world, and it's not the wisest thing to do to expend your energy to try to please everybody, because you will never be able to accomplish that. It's good to get it in the door. Got it somewhat on the other side. I'll probably double over and make sure that I got everything. get up under the mirror there. From this vantage point, I can't tell from the reflection whether I got everything. So whenever you're waxing, you want to kind of look at an angle so you can see the missed spots. You'll be able to see missed spots if you look at the right angle. The way the light casts on the paint, you can see where you may have missed something. You never want to miss a spot, right? You want to be as close to perfect as possible. My grandmother always told me nobody's perfect, and my response is, that's true, but some people are closer to perfection than others. You want to be that person, closer to perfection than others, if you can. If you're too much of a perfectionist, they can drive you up the wall too. So, moderation, right? Moderation. Just like diet and exercise, moderation. Probably can get the lower deck level here. For the lower spots now. It's down here. It'd be a hoot if the video wasn't running, it shut off. I'm just here talking to myself, not getting the recording done. Oh well, such is life. These things happen. Whoever did the day 2 stripe on this car, they did a magnificent job, because they could have fooled me. I thought it looked like factory. But as we well know, these black Lagunas did not come from the factory like that, so can't be the case. Unless, what if it was like that Plymouth Fury, that famous or infamous 1958 Plymouth Fury? We all know that our Mopar people, I'm not a particular Mopar person, but I know of the brand, and I have a soft spot for Chrysler products. The Plymouth Fury 1958 only came in, I believe it was like a yellow, a very cream color with white roof, and Christine was rolling off the factory red and white. So she was an aberration from day one. Ironically, or strangely enough, Stephen King's Plymouth, I think it was a Fury in the actual book, was a 4-door. So I think John Carpenter said, no, 2 doors too many, we have to have this thing a 2-door. We want it sporty. So 4-door is not going to cut it. So, hence John Carpenter's Christine came with a 2-door. Interesting point of note, they're doing a remake of that movie. 2021, 2022, they may be starting filming now. It may start filming in 2022. They're doing a remake of it. So that will be interesting to see. But they're going to have it set in the 70s, same time as the original book. So there won't be things like cell phones. Oh, well, anybody could have caught the car transforming using a cell phone. No, that's the benefit of being a writer and writing whatever time frame you want. You can limit your characters by putting them in a setting, a time setting where such technology is not going to aid them because it didn't exist then. So that's pretty cool. There's always a way around it. Always a way around. I think that covers it. And we'll get the A filler here. starting to spit a little more. I may be running out of time on this wax job. Suppose I could move it to the garage, but you're not going to get the lighting quality in the garage as you do get out in the open here. So, quickly start wiping this off here. I think the window of opportunity for waxing this car is closing. Maybe not. Never know. Just got to keep pushing forward. Just keep pressing forward. Try to get underneath the door handle here. And a good tactic or strategy when you're opening your car doors on any car, but particularly these cars, you don't want your fingernails scratches. So always cut your nails, cut your fingernails. You don't want a bunch of scratch marks under there. And if your fingernails are somewhat long, just cup your finger like this and grab it at the handle, but don't touch the inside there, because it drives me crazy seeing all the scratches that you see in used cars where people are just grabbing at it like a grizzly bear and putting all kinds of scratches as a consequence. It's unnecessary. I may reserve for a separate video showing you my technique for getting into the car, because the bolstering of the side bolsters is typical something that will wear out. I've seen it in Saleen Mustangs. My Saleen Mustang was flawless because I developed a technique for getting in and out of that car. So it was never shredded, it was never trashed. The bolstering on the driver's side, on the far left side of the seat, you see a lot of them become tattered over the years because people are so careless and reckless when they get in the car. You got to ease yourself into the seat. And that way you don't rub against it every time you get in and get out. And as a result, you have very good seats years later, like I did. It's all in the technique. If I sound too neurotic and crazy, you may be right. I make no apologies. I just like to preserve stuff. I like my stuff looking good. Now the counter argument to that is, well, you're just saving it for the next guy. No, I disagree with that. You're saving it for yourself. So every time you get into it, your car looks mint. And it's fine. So what is wrong with saving a car for the next person that owns it? Why wouldn't you do that? It's kind of a courtesy. It shows respect for the car. Like it's a living entity. I know it's not, it's a piece of metal, but sometimes it's hard not to think of it as something special, a part of the family. You don't want to abuse it. And there's some spots up here I missed buffing, not waxing. This, you can tell by the angle, the way the light reflects. I got this just in the crease. Here's a spot here. Spots there, and I get striping. Be very gentle about the stripes. You don't want to be peeling stuff off because there are little corners and edges that could come off fairly easily if you're not somewhat cautious. So just be cognizant of that and just get the stripes too. Some guys on the old Shelbys, they used to have problems with the stripes coming off at the edge here. This one doesn't have that. It doesn't curl around, but on the Shelbys the stripes would curl around. They would use women's nail polish and they would paint that on there, a clear coat of nail polish. And that would hold the stripe in place so it wouldn't peel off later. So that's kind of unique. It's a very creative solution to an annoying problem. Always a solution to a problem. Just that some solutions are better than others. And I think that's about it. It's not quite finished. I have more work to do on the front and on the very rear, but I'll spare you that. This is essentially waxing a 2013 Boss 302 Laguna Seca. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and you learned a few things along the way about these cars and some of the older stuff, and I hope to continue making videos on this as time permits, but I've got a pretty busy schedule, so in any event, I'm going to sign off, and over and out.